The galaxy had fallen into darkness. Once proud empires had crumbled, their mighty fleets reduced to wreckage. Planets that were once bustling with life now lay silent, their cities abandoned, their skies empty. The stars themselves seemed to flicker, dimming one by one as if the very universe was losing its will to survive. Among all this chaos, one name was whispered in secret, passed from mouth to mouth in the hidden corners of the galaxy. That name was Kaya, the last of her kind. The last of a race whose fire was said to be so powerful it could burn the stars themselves. Kaya had been born in a time of peace, but that peace was shattered long ago. She had watched the galaxy burn, piece by piece, as the greed of empires and the hunger for power destroyed everything she held dear. Now she was a fugitive. Her people had once been guardians of the stars, protectors of a fire that no one could truly understand. But they were gone. The empire that sought to control the galaxy had hunted them down, leaving Kaya as the last survivor. She was their last hope, the last flicker of a flame that could burn away the darkness. For years, Kaya had hidden in the shadows of forgotten planets, always moving, always running. She couldn't stay in one place for too long, for the enemy was always hunting her. Their agents were everywhere, tracking her every move, seeking to capture or kill her. They didn't understand her power, but they feared it. She had never let anyone see the full extent of what she was capable of. The fire that burned within her was both a gift and a curse. It gave her strength, the ability to fight back, but it also made her a target. The more she used it, the more the galaxy felt the heat, and she knew that one day, that fire might burn out of control, taking everything with it. As she walked through the dense forest on the remote planet of Zephyra, Kaya felt the familiar weight of danger closing in. The ground beneath her feet was soft, the air thick with moisture, but her senses were razor-sharp. She had learned to trust them over the years. Every sound, every shift in the wind, every shadow that moved too quickly, she knew them all. And now, she could sense them. The hunters. They were here. She had known they were getting closer, but she hadn't expected them to find her this soon. Kaya moved quickly, slipping into the trees, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't have much time. The hunters were closing in, their footsteps heavy on the ground. She could hear their voices now, low and cautious, as they spread out in search of her. They didn't know where she was, but they were getting close. She could feel the pull of her power inside her, the fire that burned just beneath the surface, eager to be unleashed. But Kaya held it back. She knew what would happen if she gave in to it now. It would burn everything around her, and the planet, this small, peaceful world, would become a pile of ash. She needed a plan. She needed to get out of here before it was too late. Her mind raced as she moved silently through the undergrowth. She had always been good at hiding, at slipping through the cracks in the galaxy's vast systems. But this was different. These hunters were skilled, trained to find and capture fugitives like her. They would stop at nothing to bring her in, dead or alive. The Empire had promised them a great reward for her capture. The thought of it made Kaya's stomach turn. She couldn't let them get their hands on her. She couldn't let them control her power. For a moment, Kaya allowed herself to focus, closing her eyes and reaching deep within herself. She felt the heat rise in her chest, the fire that burned like a star inside her. It was always there, waiting, growing stronger with every passing day. She had learned to keep it under control, but now, in this moment of danger, she felt its pull more strongly than ever. She could feel it calling to her, urging her to fight, to unleash the power that had been sealed away for so long. But Kaya knew that if she gave in, she might never be able to stop it. The fire could consume her, and once it started, there would be no going back. She couldn't let that happen. Not yet. Not until she had a chance to stop the Empire from spreading its darkness across the galaxy. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain calm. The hunters were getting closer. She could hear their voices clearer now. They were only a few meters away. Kaya had to act fast. She needed to make them think she was gone, make them believe that she had escaped into the wilds of the planet. But she couldn't let them track her. She needed a diversion. With a swift motion, Kaya reached into her bag and pulled out a small device. It was nothing more than a simple light emitter, but it would do the job. She threw it into a cluster of trees just ahead of her, and the device activated, sending out a blinding flash of light. The hunters froze, momentarily blinded by the sudden burst. Kaya took a chance. She ran, moving fast and silent, weaving through the trees, her heart racing. She couldn't stop now. She couldn't afford to be caught. The galaxy needed her, and she was its last hope. As she ran deeper into the forest, the flame inside her burned brighter, and for the first time in a long while, Kaya allowed herself to feel hope. She might be the last of her kind, but she was not alone. The galaxy was waiting for her, and she would not let it burn without a fight. The hunters were getting closer, and Kaya knew time was running out. She had evaded them for years, slipping through the cracks of the galaxy, always one step ahead. But today, something felt different. They were relentless now, pushing deeper into her trail, and it wouldn't be long before they found her. The only question that remained was whether she would escape or finally have to face them. Kaya moved through the thick underbrush of Zephyra, her senses heightened. The forest, once a place of peace and solace, now felt like a trap closing in around her. Her heart beat in rhythm with her surroundings, every rustle of leaves, every breaking twig, sending a warning through her body. The hunters were experts, trained to track down fugitives like her. But they had underestimated one thing: Kaya's will to survive. Her mind raced as she assessed her options. She could keep running, try to lose them in the dense forest. But they were smart. They'd expect her to try that. They knew this planet's terrain better than anyone else. The moment she made a mistake, they'd be on her in an instant. No, running wasn't an option anymore. It was time to face them. Kaya took a deep breath, her hand tightening around the hilt of the weapon hidden beneath her cloak. It wasn't much, a simple, compact blade, but it would be enough. She'd faced worse odds before, but this time, there was something different in the air. A sense of finality. She had been running for too long. The flame inside her had been growing stronger, more restless. She could feel it, ready to explode, ready to burn away everything in its path. But she knew if she let it loose, there would be no going back. She couldn't allow herself to lose control. Not yet. She paused, hiding in a small thicket of trees, listening carefully. The hunters were getting closer. She could hear their voices, low, controlled, confident. They were closing in on her position. They weren't rushing. They were being methodical. She could almost picture them in her mind. A group of highly trained men and women, each one skilled at the hunt, each one determined to catch their prey. They were too close. Suddenly, an idea formed in Kaya's mind. It was risky, but it was her only shot. If she could lead them into a trap, use their confidence against them, she might be able to turn the tide. But it meant revealing herself, exposing her presence. She would have to take that risk. The galaxy was depending on her. She turned and began moving silently, the forest's thick branches helping to mask her steps. She wasn't far from a cliffside, a perfect place to trap them. As she reached the edge of the cliff, she stopped, watching the hunters below. They had split into two groups, methodically scanning the area. Their eyes were trained on the ground, not looking up. Kaya closed her eyes and reached deep inside herself. The flame within her responded, stirring and pulsing with energy. She had to keep it under control, but she needed a small spark. Just enough to get their attention. She focused, and with a flick of her wrist, she ignited a small spark in the brush behind the hunters. The fire flared, catching their attention immediately. They whirled around, scanning the smoke-filled air, their weapons drawn and ready. Kaya watched them closely, her heart beating faster. She needed them to approach. She needed them to step right into her trap. As the hunters advanced toward the fire, Kaya knew it was now or never. She leaped from her hiding spot, using the momentum to vault up and over a large rock outcrop. The hunters below never saw her coming. By the time they turned, she was already on the move again, dashing toward the edge of the cliff, her feet light and quick. A sharp whistle from one of the hunters pierced the air as they realized what she was doing. It was a signal to the others, and within moments, they were moving with deadly speed toward her. But Kaya was ready. She knew their tactics well. She reached the cliffside just as they arrived, and with a swift motion, she triggered a small device strapped to her wrist. The ground beneath the hunters' feet gave way, and a rockslide tumbled down the cliff, blocking their path. It wasn't much, but it bought her a few precious seconds. As the dust settled, Kaya didn't wait around. She sprinted in the opposite direction, away from the hunters and deeper into the dense jungle. She couldn't afford to stop now. She needed to get further, farther away from them, to get back to her ship and off this cursed planet. There was no turning back. But she wasn't free yet. The hunters were relentless, and Kaya could feel their presence following her, closing in like a dark shadow. She was running out of time, and the flame inside her, her true power, was now burning brighter than ever. It was getting harder to control. Soon, the galaxy would know what she was capable of. And when that day came, there would be no more running. Kaya ran through the jungle with all the speed her legs could muster, her breath coming in shallow gasps. She could hear the hunters in the distance, their pursuit unrelenting. The trap she'd set had bought her a little time, but it wasn't enough. They would catch up to her soon, she knew that. The thought of facing them head-on, of unleashing the full force of her power, had crossed her mind more than once. But she couldn't let herself go there yet, not until it was absolutely necessary. Her mind raced as she pushed herself harder, her feet barely touching the ground as she weaved between trees and over rocks. The flame inside her was growing, the heat of it licking at her insides, urging her to set the world ablaze. Kaya felt its pull more strongly than ever before. It was always there, lurking beneath the surface, waiting to be released. But the consequences of losing control were something she couldn't afford to face. Not now. Kaya could feel the pulse of her power deep inside her. It was as though it was alive, calling to her, urging her to unleash it. She didn't know if she was strong enough to keep it contained much longer. Every time the flame stirred, it felt like it was testing her, pushing her to see just how far she could go before she broke. She had learned long ago that once the flame was set free, there would be no stopping it. She had to keep running. But even as she tried to outrun her fate, something began to shift within her. A new understanding. She could feel the fire inside her, but this time, it wasn't as threatening. It wasn't a danger. It was a part of her, one she had been afraid to acknowledge for so long. Her power wasn't something to be feared. It was something to embrace. She had spent so much time running from the fire, trying to control it, keep it locked away. But maybe, just maybe, it was time to let it out. The galaxy needed her, needed this power. She was the last of her kind, the only one left who could stand against the Empire's growing control over the galaxy. If she didn't act soon, everything she had fought for would be lost. Kaya stopped, her feet coming to a halt in the middle of a clearing. The sound of the hunters grew closer, their voices low and urgent. They were almost upon her, and she had nowhere to run. This was it. There was no more hiding, no more running. She could feel the fire inside her, burning with a fierce intensity. It was time. With a deep breath, Kaya allowed herself to fully embrace the flame within. She could feel it igniting, a rush of heat surging through her veins. The ground beneath her feet seemed to tremble as the flame responded to her will, rising higher and higher. The trees around her seemed to warp, the air thick with heat as her power intensified. The hunters, now mere feet away, froze in shock as they saw the sudden change in the air. The wind picked up, swirling violently around Kaya as the fire that lived inside her began to spread, curling around her like a living entity. They had thought her to be nothing more than a girl on the run, a fugitive with nothing more than a flicker of hope. But now, they'd realized the truth. She was the last flame, and her power was unlike anything they had ever seen. Kaya raised her hands, and the fire obeyed her every command. It swirled around her, a blinding vortex of heat and light. The hunters moved back, fear creeping into their eyes as they realized what they were facing. They had never expected her to be so powerful. They had never expected her to have this much fire inside her. But Kaya wasn't done yet. With a swift motion, she sent the flame rushing toward them. It was a controlled blast, a warning more than anything. The hunters scattered, their weapons drawn, but they were no match for her. They had no idea how to fight this force of nature. They had underestimated her. Kaya's heart pounded in her chest as she felt the power coursing through her. It was exhilarating, terrifying, and exhilarating all at once. The fire responded to her, but she had to remain focused. She couldn't let herself lose control. Not yet. She needed to save the galaxy, not destroy it. With a final surge of energy, Kaya sent the flame in a different direction, causing an explosion of light that sent the hunters flying. The force of it knocked them to the ground, stunned and disoriented. They didn't know what hit them. As the smoke cleared, Kaya stood alone in the clearing, her body trembling with the energy that still crackled around her. She could feel the fire inside her, still burning, but now she had control. She had harnessed it, channeled it into something powerful and precise. But Kaya knew this wasn't over. The hunters would regroup, and there were more of them out there. She couldn't stop now. The flame inside her burned brighter, and she knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy needed her, and she was ready to fight. With one last look at the disoriented hunters, Kaya turned and ran, her heart pounding in her chest, the fire inside her burning brighter than ever before. She was no longer just a fugitive. She was a force to be reckoned with, and the galaxy would burn before her flame went out. The forest was quiet now, but Kaya didn't slow down. She could still feel the heat of the flame within her, crackling like a live wire, and the remnants of the fire she'd unleashed lingered in the air. The hunters had been thrown off, but they were not defeated. They would recover quickly, and when they did, they would come for her with everything they had. Kaya knew that her fight was far from over. This was just the beginning. As she sprinted through the jungle, the sound of her footsteps barely audible against the backdrop of rustling leaves and distant bird calls, Kaya's mind raced. The blast she had released had given her a brief moment of victory, but it had also made her a much bigger target. The galaxy's empires would know what she was capable of now, and they wouldn't stop until they controlled her, or destroyed her. But she couldn't let that happen. She couldn't let them win. Her mind shifted back to the larger picture, the galaxy. She was the last of her kind, the last to carry the flame that had once burned so brightly. Her ancestors had wielded the fire, had used it to protect the galaxy from the darkness that now threatened to consume it. But they were gone. The Empire had hunted them down, one by one, and now Kaya was the only one left. And yet, as powerful as she was only one person. She needed help. She needed allies if she was going to stand a chance against the Empire. The realization hit her with full force. She had been alone for so long, always running, always hiding. But now, she knew it was time to reach out. She couldn't carry this burden alone. She needed to find those who still cared about the galaxy, those who would fight with her to stop the Empire's expansion, to bring light back to the stars. But where would she find them? Her mind flashed back to the whispers she had heard in the shadows over the years. Rebels, freedom fighters, secret organizations who had resisted the Empire's tyranny. They were out there hiding, just as she had once been. It was time to find them. With newfound determination, Kaya pushed herself harder. She couldn't afford to waste time. The flame inside her burned, but it was also her guide. She trusted it now. It was leading her to something, someone, she didn't know yet, but she would find them. Hours passed as Kaya moved through the dense jungle, her senses sharp and alert. She hadn't stopped since her confrontation with the hunters. But she knew she couldn't keep running forever. The fatigue was starting to settle in her bones, but she ignored it. Her mission was too important. She could rest later. Finally, as the sun began to set, casting an orange glow over the trees, she reached a clearing. The air was cooler here, and the sound of rushing water could be heard in the distance. This was where she needed to be. She had heard rumors of a hidden base, a place where those who resisted the Empire gathered in secret. Kaya hoped she had found it. She cautiously stepped into the clearing, her heart racing with anticipation. Her eyes scanned the area, searching for any sign of movement. There was no one in sight, but she could feel something, an energy in the air that made her realize she was not alone. She wasn't sure who or what was watching, but she knew she had arrived at the right place. Before she could move any further, a voice broke the silence, low and steady. "You're a long way from home, Kaya." Kaya tensed, her hand instinctively reaching for the weapon at her side. She turned slowly, her heart pounding. Standing before her was a man, tall and lean, with sharp features and eyes that glinted in the fading light. He wore the uniform of a resistance fighter, but it was different from the usual garb. His was worn and patched, as though he had been on the run for years. "How do you know my name?" Kaya asked, her voice steady but with a hint of suspicion. The man smiled faintly, as though he had been expecting her. "We know more than you think. We've been following your movements for some time now." Kaya's eyes narrowed. "And why should I trust you?" The man's gaze softened. "Because we want the same thing. To stop the Empire. To give the galaxy a chance to survive." For a moment, Kaya studied him. He didn't seem like the enemy. In fact, something about him felt familiar. She could sense his sincerity, even if she didn't fully understand why he had been following her. But in her heart, she knew he was right. She couldn't do this alone anymore. "I'm listening," she said finally. The man nodded, his expression turning serious. "We've been waiting for someone like you, the last of your kind. You're the key to stopping this. You have the fire within you. We have the people and the resources. Together, we can strike at the heart of the Empire. But we need you." Kaya felt a shiver run down her spine. This was it. The moment she had been running toward. The moment when the galaxy's fate would be decided. And for the first time in years, she felt something stir inside her that wasn't fear. It was hope. "I'm in," Kaya said, her voice filled with determination. "Tell me what I need to do." The man smiled, a glimmer of approval in his eyes. "We'll start by gathering more allies. But first, we need to strike a blow, something that will send a message to the Empire. Something that will show them we're not afraid, that we're fighting back." Kaya nodded. The fire inside her surged with renewed strength. She was ready. The last flame was no longer a solitary, flickering light in the darkness. It was now a beacon, a signal to the galaxy that the fight had just begun. And Kaya would burn brighter than ever before. Kaya stood there in the clearing, her heart racing with anticipation as the reality of her decision began to settle in. She had made it this far alone, running from the Empire, hiding her power, constantly on the move. But now, standing before this man and hearing his words, something in her shifted. She wasn't just running anymore. She was stepping into a fight for something bigger than herself, something worth risking everything for. The man, who introduced himself as Zane, led Kaya through the dense jungle to a hidden camp. It was an old military base, long abandoned by the Empire, but now serving as a refuge for rebels and freedom fighters. As they walked, Kaya couldn't help but feel a sense of disbelief. She had spent so many years hiding, so many years alone, and now, here she was, on the verge of joining a resistance that had been waiting for her, for the last flame. The camp was alive with activity. Soldiers moved in and out of makeshift tents, and the sounds of equipment being repaired filled the air. There were people of all kinds, men and women from different planets, different species, united by a single cause, to fight the Empire. Kaya couldn't help but marvel at the sight. This was what she had been searching for, what she had needed all along. These people didn't just want to survive. They wanted to reclaim their homes, their freedom, and the stars themselves. They wanted to make the Empire pay for its tyranny. Zane led her to a small, central command tent where an older woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor was sitting at a table, surrounded by maps and communication devices. She looked up when they entered, and there was an immediate recognition in her gaze. Kaya's heart skipped a beat. "You're Kaya," the woman said, her voice steady but with a trace of awe. "The last of the flame." Kaya nodded, unsure of how to respond. She wasn't used to people recognizing her like this, not in this way. It felt strange, but it also gave her a sense of purpose, something she hadn't felt in a long time. "I'm Commander Lyra," the woman said, standing to shake Kaya's hand. "We've been waiting for you." Kaya's gaze flickered to the maps on the table. The Empire's reach was vast, its influence suffocating entire systems, crushing any resistance beneath its boot. But there were cracks, she realized. There were places, pockets of rebellion, where hope still burned. "You said you've been waiting for me," Kaya said, her voice low. "Why? What can I do that you can't?" Lyra's eyes softened, a slight smile tugging at her lips. "We've been fighting for years, Kaya. But we need something more than just weapons and strategy. We need the fire, the strength of your people. The Empire is terrified of your kind. They've hunted you down for a reason. Your power, it's not just a weapon. It's a symbol. You are the spark that can light the fire of a galaxy-wide rebellion." Kaya felt the weight of her words settle on her chest. She hadn't thought of herself as a symbol before. She had always been the last survivor, the last hope, running from the shadows. But now here she was, the key to something far bigger than herself. She had the power to change the galaxy, to lead a fight that could break the chains of the Empire. It was a responsibility that almost overwhelmed her. "Where do we start?" she asked, her voice steady, though she could feel the uncertainty bubbling just beneath the surface. Lyra's expression hardened with determination. "We hit them where it hurts. The Empire controls the resources, the fleets, and the supply lines. But they also have weaknesses. There's a facility on the edge of the system that holds critical intelligence. If we can get to it, we can cripple their communications, disrupt their operations, and give the rest of the galaxy a chance to rise up." Kaya's heart skipped a beat. A mission. A real mission. One that would require everything she had. It was risky, dangerous, and exactly what she had been waiting for. She was no longer just running from the Empire. She was going to fight back. Zane stepped forward, pulling up a holographic display of the facility. "It's a high-security installation, but not invincible. We have the element of surprise on our side. If we move quickly, we can take them by surprise, destroy their intel, and send a message that we're not afraid anymore." Kaya looked at the map, studying the facility's layout. The fire inside her flared in response, eager to be unleashed. She could feel the heat in her chest, the power that had always been a part of her, waiting to be called upon. She was ready. No more running. No more hiding. "I'm in," Kaya said, her voice firm. "Let's do it." The camp seemed to hold its breath as Lyra exchanged a look with Zane. Then slowly she nodded. "All right, gather your gear. We move out in the morning." Kaya nodded, turning to leave the tent. As she stepped outside, the cool night air washed over her. The stars above twinkled brightly, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of peace. She wasn't alone anymore. There was a fire inside her, yes, but now it was burning alongside the fire of countless others. And together, they would rise up. The galaxy wasn't lost yet. There was still hope, still a chance to change things. And Kaya would burn brighter than ever before to make sure of it. The morning came quickly, the the sky still dark with the first light of dawn barely peeking over the horizon. Kaya woke with a sharpness in her mind that had eluded her for years. She wasn't just waking up from sleep, she was waking up to a new purpose, a new chapter of her life. She wasn't alone anymore. She wasn't just the last of her kind, the last flame. She was part of something larger, something that could change everything. Kaya stood outside the camp, the crisp air cutting through the trees as she prepared herself for what was coming. She had been given a mission: infiltrate the Empire's facility, destroy their critical intelligence, and send a message. It was dangerous, a high-risk strike that could easily fail. But failure wasn't an option anymore. She had seen what the Empire was capable of. She had seen the destruction they had wrought on innocent lives, on whole systems. There was no more room for hesitation. She had to do this, not just for herself, but for everyone who was still trapped under the Empire's control. Zane found her standing by the edge of the camp, looking out into the dense jungle. "You ready?" he asked, his voice calm, but with an edge of something deeper beneath it. Kaya nodded, her grip tightening on the weapon she had been given. A sleek blaster with a power that matched the fire inside her. "I'm ready," she said. Together, they gathered the team. A mix of resistance fighters, each with a different set of skills, each carrying their own reasons for joining the fight. There was Mira, a quick-witted hacker who could bypass any security system. Jax, a sharpshooter who Zane never missed. And Kiran, a former soldier with unparalleled combat skills. Each of them had come from different walks of life, but now they all had a single goal: to bring down the Empire and take back the galaxy. The team moved quickly through the jungle, staying low and quiet. The facility they were targeting was heavily guarded, a fortress surrounded by thick walls and armed patrols. It would take everything they had to get inside. But Kaya wasn't worried about the walls. She was worried about the flame inside her. Every moment that passed, it grew stronger, hotter, more insistent. She could feel it, pulsing within her, calling to her. It was as if the fire inside her had a will of its own, a desire to be unleashed. And for the first time, she felt herself giving into it. They reached the outskirts of the facility just as the sun began to rise, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink. Kaya's pulse quickened as she looked up at the towering structure ahead. It seemed impregnable, a cold and unyielding monolith of the Empire's control. But they had one advantage: they knew where the weakest point was. Mira had hacked into the Empire's systems, pinpointing the location of a hidden entrance, a maintenance tunnel buried beneath the facility's outer walls. It was their only shot. "Let's move," Zane whispered, his voice carrying just enough authority to set the team in motion. They crouched low and moved through the shadows, keeping out of sight of the patrols. The jungle had given them cover, but the closer they got to the facility, the more intense the pressure became. Kaya could feel the weight of every step, every heartbeat in her chest. The fire inside her was restless, yearning for release. She had trained herself to keep it under control, but this mission was different. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment to prove to herself and to the galaxy that she was not just the last flame, but the spark that could ignite a rebellion. They reached the entrance to the maintenance tunnel, and Mira immediately got to work, her fingers flying over a small device that would override the security locks. Within moments, the door clicked open, and the team slipped inside. The tunnel was narrow and dimly lit, but it was enough to keep them hidden. They moved quickly, silently, down the dark path. Kaya could hear the sounds of distant machinery and guards patrolling above them. Every step took them closer to their goal, but every step also brought the fire inside her closer to the surface. "We're almost there," Mira whispered as they neared the facility's core. "We need to plant the charges on the intel room. Once we do, we'll have just a few minutes before the whole place goes up." Kaya's mind sharpened. This was it, the final stretch. They reached the door to the intelligence room, and Jax quickly disabled the security lock. The moment the door opened, Kaya stepped inside, her senses on high alert. The room was filled with high-tech equipment, data terminals, and crates of classified intel. Everything the Empire needed to maintain its grip on the galaxy. Mira immediately set to work, planting the explosives around the room while Kiran kept watch. Zane and Kaya stood by the door, ready for any movement. The seconds stretched into minutes, and the tension in the room was palpable. Kaya could feel her heart pounding, and the fire inside her continued to burn hotter with each passing second. "Done," Mira said, her voice tight with focus. "Let's get out of here." But before they could make their way back to the tunnel, the door to the intelligence room slammed open, and a group of Imperial soldiers flooded inside. Kaya's heart skipped a beat. They had been compromised. "Move!" Zane shouted, and they all sprang into action. Gunfire erupted, echoing through the facility. Jax opened fire, his shots precise and deadly, taking down one soldier after another. Kiran charged forward, his combat skills allowing him to take down two more with quick, brutal movements. Mira backed up, covering their retreat, while Zane and Kaya stood guard. Kaya could feel the fire inside her roaring now, a burning need to end this fight. She raised her hands, and the flame surged in response, crackling to life. With a sudden burst of power, she unleashed it, sending a wave of heat that knocked the soldiers back, their weapons scattering across the floor. The walls of the room warped from the intensity of the heat, and the air became thick with smoke. The soldiers were stunned, scrambling to regroup, but Kaya didn't hesitate. She kept the flame flowing, channeling it with all her might. The room was a blur of light and heat, and the soldiers had no chance against her. "We're done here," Zane yelled, pulling Kaya toward the exit. "Get out. Now." They ran, moving as quickly as they could through the facility, with Kaya holding the flame at bay, pushing it back just enough to avoid setting the entire building ablaze. But the fire was still there, burning, waiting for its next moment. They'd reached the maintenance tunnel just as the first of the explosives detonated, sending shockwaves through the walls. The building shook and alarms blared. "Go, go, go!" Zane shouted. The team sprinted through the tunnel, the explosion behind them echoing like a promise. They burst out into the jungle, breathless and covered in sweat, as the facility behind them erupted into flames. Kaya turned to look back, her heart racing. The Empire had just lost something crucial, something that would cripple their control. And Kaya had played her part. She had done it. She was no longer just the last flame. She was the spark that would light the galaxy on fire.